To Tech in 10, where we are aiming to provide 10 minutes of practical advice on a topic, and today's topic is going to be organising your digital workspace. So there are lots of tools out there that you can use, but we're going to focus on three particular ones within the Microsoft ecosystem today. And this will hopefully give you some insight into flexible ways to work and using these digital workspaces to collaborate effectively. So let's get into the first one, which is Microsoft OneDrive. So OneDrive, as the name sort of suggests, is that it's a personal cloud storage. So we're not talking about necessarily personal as in your home use. It is more to the person within that business context. So what OneDrive can do for you is it can sync files locally. It can share links to files so that you don't have to email large files backwards and forwards or folders. It gives you sort of visual control, and it's generally just used to store all your personal cloud information. So with Microsoft 365, you get a terabyte of storage, which is generally plenty to store documents. You can use it to store files, folders, to do in different ways to store the information how you would like to operate your system. So everybody has a filing system, so that works out quite well. It allows you to sync locally, so you can use OneDrive on a desktop, on a mobile app, tablet, however you want to work. But you can also sync locally, which allows you to work offline. And when you come back online, those changes are automatically synced. So one thing to keep in mind with this is that it's better to be careful with that in shared libraries because files may change by other users as well. So just keep that one in mind. Share links, as I sort of mentioned before, if you need to share files or folders to people, you can generate share links and share those for a temporary amount of time. These are good because email compromise is the #1 attack method that malicious people will do. And if you're sending files with information in email, they're stored in email until they're deleted. So by sending share links and having expiry dates, it allows you to control the data that you're sharing more and reduce your attack surface, whether it be in your mailbox or in your recipient's mailbox, which you have less control over. So share links are really good for that. And version control. So OneDrive will automatically keep track of file versions. So if you accidentally overwrite something, you can go into previous versions or version history and you can see what's changed and you can restore them. So really, really helpful to have and very behind the scenes, you don't really notice that it's happening. So next app we're going to talk about is OneNote. I would be lost without OneNote. It is my scratchpad for things. It can use sections and tags and labels to be able to organize your notebook into different spaces. You can share whole notebooks with people, and it also integrates with Microsoft To Do, which is really great. So essentially, it's a digital notebook. So you can have different sections, pages, sub-pages, and so on in order to organize it how you may like. So that will vary depending on the person. Tags and labels are really useful to highlight important points and organize information within those digital workbooks. So they're quite good. And sharing and collaborating using notebooks. So you can share it in real time. Changes are saved automatically with OneNote. So when you're typing, those keystrokes are getting put into OneNote Live. So if you happen to have your computer crash or something like that, or the app crashes, all those keystrokes should be put on live. So that's what helps foster the real-time collaboration with your colleagues because it's live. You can see what's being changed. It integrates with SharePoint. So Microsoft SharePoint is the back end of Teams, of OneDrive and OneNote, so you can store those in Teams and in groups to allow access to that more easily. So you can store notebooks in your OneDrive and then you can share those out. Otherwise, as we'll touch on in the next slide about SharePoint, you can locate them into a team share, and that anybody that's part of that team will automatically be able to use those. So last point is it integrates with Microsoft To Do or Outlook tasks. So that whole tasks engine is all integrated. So when you create a checklist, it actually can come across into your tasks. So you can organize all the things that you need to do in the Microsoft To Do, which also includes the Outlook tasks, To Do itself, Planner, and things that you're assigned, along with OneNote. So that brings all that together quite nicely. The last point to touch on is SharePoint. So SharePoint's gone through many iterations over the journey, but ultimately it is for content management and collaboration. So there's different things that you can use in SharePoint. One of the more common ones in the modern setup is document libraries. So you can use those to store your files, create folders, set permissions, and control versions all within that platform. It's the back end that if you are in Teams and you go to Files tab, that's all located in SharePoint. Team sites you can set up for collaboration of teams in different sort of environments and have different templates applied. So you can use that for bringing people in that are working on a particular subject and need to be presented information in a particular way that makes it quite efficient. So that's quite good. Custom lists, so you can track different things in lists within SharePoint. And in fact, the Microsoft Lists app is SharePoint backend, so it is very familiar in that sense. But Microsoft Lists can be used within SharePoint to create some very cool but simple columns, views, and just sort information and present that quite nicely. And permissions. So permissions by default, when you join a team, you're part of the ability is to access those files. So they can be very easy for getting access to team members that join by just adding them to the team that they're in, and then they automatically get those permissions. So you can set permissions at a more granular level, but the more complex that you set permissions in SharePoint, although it's possible, it can cause concern down the track if it's not organized correctly. So definitely worth planning that out quite well. And the last point to touch on is the integration with OneDrive. So OneDrive and SharePoint sort of work together. OneDrive backends onto SharePoint. And there is an app called OneDrive that can be used to sync the files down locally for both OneDrive and SharePoint. We actually did a webinar recently that touches on the differences between those. So if it's a bit confusing or you're not sure how that works, definitely check that out. Otherwise, we will move on to the Q&A. So if you do have any questions, we do have the Q&A button at the top there in the Teams webinar. So please feel free to put something in there. And I'll just have a quick look and see if we have anything coming through. Okay, so how can I effectively manage documents across these three tools? So you don't need to know how everything works, but each tool has a purpose. So for personal files or things that you don't need to be natively shared to a team, then OneDrive is really good for those, and you can organize those as you need. You might use OneNote to collaborate in note-taking or as a scratch pad for things that you're working on before it makes it into a document. I know for me, we use a lot of systems, a help desk system, a documentation system. So those things don't live in documents, they're into apps. So we don't start with a document. I use OneDrive and then move it when it's sort of ready to go. And SharePoint is great for synchronizing files and team files. You can also share links from there, so you can use similar features to OneDrive. It just starts off at a more collaborative mindset. So elaborate on the integration between OneNote and SharePoint. So OneNote are files that can sit in a storage location, and because of the way that it is co-authoring or live, it needs a way that it's able to do that. So the file sits on SharePoint or OneDrive typically, and it ensures that that synchronization takes place so that if you've got multiple people working on it, that they're seeing the information in real time. So generally it's just a file stored in SharePoint. Technically you can do it in other cloud platforms, but it's not as native in that sense. So what are the key differences between OneNote, OneDrive, and SharePoint? So, just to sort of put it all together into a sentence, I guess, is OneDrive is one person's personal storage drive. SharePoint is the shared drive or shared library, and OneNote is your digital notepad. So that would definitely be the very concise way to put it. And are there any mobile apps available to access SharePoint? There are, so you can use the OneDrive app on your mobile device, iOS and Android. And when you access that, you'll be able to see your storage and you'll be able to see the shared libraries that you're sort of assigned based on your team membership. So that would be the best way to do it. If you use OneDrive on your personal device, it can be also quite useful if you're taking photos for work purposes that you use that OneDrive app to take the photos, because it would then save it into your work drive rather than your personal photos. If you get those mixed up, they can be a pain to be going in and downloading them and then deleting them. So that's just a little handy tidbit there around using the mobile apps. And I think that might be all we have for Q&A. There are some references there on the page which we'll put into the website. So if you have any questions, please reach out to us. If you've got any requests for topics, there's a form on the website there as well. So hopefully that has been valuable, and I'll see you next time.